Hey everybody, Tom Barnes, stories from the 78, and the big scene this weekend is the Wicker Park Fest. It's happening this weekend, July 28th, the 19th year. 50 bands, local like vendors and food, the whole thing celebrating all things that is local. Chicago in terms of like the culture of it. And then you got some major bands that are also passing through. And I have my friend Jonathan here to explain the whole thing. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, John, for the folks who might not know, Chicago has lots of smaller venues, big venues, and then you get the big ones that you hear about,
Mhm,
festivals and whatnot. But you are in the music scene here in Chicago because you're a talent
mhm.
buyer, and talk about that in terms of the clubs and not and the fest itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a talent buyer over at Subterranean in Wicker Park or in Wicker Park, the neighborhood, and also at Beat Kitchen here in Chicago. And outside of that, I work with a company that I own called Kickstand Productions, and we produce events all over the state, the Midwest, and various places in Chicago. But in terms of how that relates to Wicker Park Fest, Subterranean produces and books the bands for the festival, Wicker Park Fest. This weekend was one of the largest street festivals in the city. It's different from some of the other street festivals you'll find in Chicago that tend to lean towards cover bands and tribute bands and
Hmm.
musical fare like that. We make a strong emphasis intentionally to really spotlight and lift up a lot of local Chicago artists and original artists, national touring acts, and that sort of thing.
And there's three performance stages, right, throughout the
Mhm.
fest, and there's over 150 food and like local retailers
Oh
spread
yeah.
sprinkled throughout the space. So it's a
Oh
lot of.
yeah.
It's not just music. There's a lot going on.
It's not just music. There's a whole bunch of stuff. There's a community culture and programming stage. We have the arts and craft vendors, food vendors. There's performance artists. There's something for everybody. And in fact, one of my favorite things about booking the event and being involved in the event is it really is an attraction. People come there not necessarily knowing all the artists. There are certainly people that come out to see the artists that we have playing the festival, but a lot of people come out for the event as a whole, right? There's a lot more to do than just the live music component.
Right. And then I was reading on Saturday and Sunday, you even have a specific family friendly kids area, it's
Yes.
because I'm guessing, I'm just going on a limb here, that when this started 19 years ago, Wicker Park was a little bit different than it is now in terms of maybe just the vibe, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
probably a lot more strollers on the street than there were perhaps
Yes.
back then.
Yes. There are a lot more strollers on the street than there were back then. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've been booking the festival for probably a little over 10 years, and I know Wicker Park has changed a lot in just that time, as any Chicago neighborhood does, right?
Yeah,
A
of
decade
course.
brings a lot of change, but Wicker Park is you know, has such a significant place in the Chicago music scene. During the 90s, the heyday of the like 90s alternative boom, right? You had Wicker Park was ground zero with Double Door being there,
Yeah.
Liz Fair, Smoking Popes,
The Pumpkins
Smashing
even one.
Pumpkins. Yeah, all those amazing bands that came out of Chicago at that time. Wicker Park was a big like hotbed. Totally different, lot less strollers back then,
Yeah.
but we try to keep some of that same sensibility, in the programming certainly, and that is very much like part of the identity of the event. Is it that it's been around for 20 years or so?
Yeah, and having over 50 acts in
Yeah,
general is a lot in 3 days. I mean, that's a lot of going on, which is amazing that you could even call it a street festival when you have
yeah,
that many acts. Because I mean, think about 20 years ago, 50 bands on a stage. You were talking about perhaps maybe a bigger name music festival that was playing at a bigger park. But that's what just speaks to the reputation Wicker Park has as a music enclave, really, and just that explosion of culture in the city of Chicago, Milwaukee Avenue down that way. Just, I don't know, like that's so Chicago to me.
mhm.
You know what I mean? Like it's one of
Yeah.
my favorite spots.
That's my favorite. artists play the event, right? And it never, every year, I've been doing this for like a little over a decade, and I pay respect to the people that built and established this event, booking amazing music before me. But artists play the stage, and you look up the view from the stage, you see people in their apartments, like up in the balconies, like looking over. Like it is, it always like I never fails to like amaze me. Like I can't believe that this massively trafficked area is shut down for this event, and it's this wonderful feeling when you walk through the festival grounds, seeing people not only walking up and down the street, but people like watching in their apartments or on their like
That's so
chilling out on their
Chicago.
balconies with their friends. And there is like I think that like in sports, when people go and play the Seahawks, they talk about like the 12th or 13th man or whatever, like the audience
Yeah.
has an effect on the game. I feel like with Wicker Park Fest, like the audience, like the people that are there, the people that live in the community that support the event are also this other factor that you can't quantify. Like there's a vibe there that I think is unmatched in the, in the city, particularly in the street festivals.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of talent bookers over the years, and they talk about Chicago, and some not from Chicago at all, right? They come to town for one thing or another, but the street festival, it's not unique to Chicago, but the way we do it is very unique to Chicago, and they're blown away by what the city does on any given weekend, really. But when you have the bigger ones, they're just shocked at like how the city comes out. A lot of these events are free. You walk through it. There is a suggested donation, which just helps put the fest on. When you get, I mean, you're seeing, we haven't even talked about like the headliner bands that you have there, but Built to Spill, talking about some of that explosion of that 90s music. I mean, I played Built to Spill all the time when I was in college, which
love it.
was right before like 2000, right around 99, 2000, 2001. So that's just a lot of, it's just so unique.
Yeah, and me like, oh man. So I love Built to Spill first and foremost, and I, as a programmer, and as a booker for the event, you have your own personal taste, but you keep that. That's only part of the equation, right? If I only booked what I liked, I would have been out of business a long time ago, unfortunately. But so it's with booking Wicker Park Fest, you want to come up with a lineup that is like reflective of the amazing culture and all the different communities in the area, right? So it's not only what I like and what I respond to as a talent buyer, or we use Subterranean as a sort of incubator of sorts. We do like 400 shows a year, plus shows a year through Subterranean, have thousands and thousands of artists crossing our stages. Gives us this opportunity to kind of see a band in action, like up on our stage, to form these relationships with artists before we put them up on the Wicker Park Fest stage. So you have not only that informing the programming, but we work with a lot of different partners in the community here in the city. We have the Future Roots Collective, who primarily kind of are a DJ collective that like kind of emphasize like Latin, cumbia, like a whole different set of the programming from other music on other stages, right? And they have their stamp on that and do a fantastic job. And then on Friday, we have Built to Spill and The Good Life and Speedy Ortiz on one stage. On the other stage, the amazing Lito Pimienta, is like Latin global beats. Was on Barack Obama's a couple of years ago. How he releases those playlists.
Yeah.
And then on the other stage, we have like a reggae, all reggae acts. So that's kind of like the idea is is to bring as much from our music community as we can fit, while making it cohesive from a programming standpoint, but try to like be able to give a sampling, hopefully, of a lot of great talent, Chicago and nationally and otherwise.
Yeah, and it's just a great excuse to go out, have a few drinks, enjoy great music, and really, like, I always because I love Chicago, right? So
Yeah.
it's like cleansing my soul to do those things. You know, like you go to
Yeah.
work and you do all the things, and work, some people have great jobs they love. Some people, you know, it's anywhere from I hate it to that point, right? But either way, work is still work. And I know that this is a work event for you, so forgive me. But for the people who are not putting on the fest but enjoying it, especially people who love music and our city, this is like a pride moment too. Like you walk around, you're like, our city rules. This is why our city
Yeah.
rules. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, and the artist, you know, when we have artists that come in from other states, touring artists, they're blown away by that aspect of the event. They can't imagine like something like that happening in their city. And some cities are fortunate enough to have that, and others aren't, right? So it makes me really appreciate that we have that in Chicago, and not just us with Wicker Park Fest, but there are numerous amazing festivals in the city.
Yeah, and it starts this Friday through Sunday, right there in Wicker Park. It's not hard to miss. If you know where Wicker Park is, you're going to know this. The blue line runs right through the whole thing. So, and for people who want information, though, what's the website they should go to just in case they got any other questions?
Yeah, absolutely. You could find information, a full schedule, information on our vendors and partners over at wickerparkfest.com.
John, thank you so much for taking time. I wish you nothing but great weather this weekend and great music and a full belly.
Yeah, thank you. I wish you the same. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We'll see you at the fest this weekend.
Take care.